There are some alleged flights that some will claim are proofs of the globe. They will claim that there are north to south pole circumnavigation flights that prove we live on a globe. However, when we actually look into all of these alleged north to south circumnavigation flights and their actual flight paths, we will very clearly see that none of these flights actually make a complete, true north to south circumnavigation over a globe, but rather only make a 180-degree U-turn, half loop circumnavigation on one half side of the Earth, only further proving that there has never been a flight in history that has gone beyond the South Pole and popped up on the other side to make a pure meridian longitudinal journey around a globe. The first four circumnavigation flights that I'm going to go over are the flights that are listed on the flatearth.ws quote unquote debunk website, as these are flights that most commonly get brought up by Globers, who tend to just post this link without ever actually looking into these flights or doing any kind of research of their own. And then I will also debunk several other circumnavigation flights that are not listed on the flatearth.ws debunk website. But for now, we will very easily debunk all four of these flights. Just for some added context, the vast majority of the flatearth.ws website does not actually debunk most flat earth common claims, but only intentionally uses patently incorrect information, lies, manipulates facts, changes narratives of claims, and pumps out patently false misinformation to its many viewers to continue to perpetuate the globe lie. And we're going to get into more detail later, pointing out exactly how they do this. I'm fairly confident that the graphic designer of the flatearth.ws website could make a great career working for NASA, as they are quite skillful at spoon-feeding lies and misinformation to the public. But let's go ahead and get started on debunking all of these flights and further disprove the globe model. First, we are going to look at this Sir Ranulph Fiennes flight of 1979. This flight had many discrepancies, alterations, and manipulations during the course of its journey. Not to mention, because this flight happened in 1979, we have no GPS data to verify its actual objective flight route, as well as its legitimacy. But you will soon see that the GPS data is not necessary, as this unorganized expedition falls flat on its face and debunks itself. And you will also learn that this is not the first time Sir Ranulph Fiennes has lied about an expedition, which completely destroys any credibility that was left of this expedition.
And of course, the key here is the circumnavigation, but not east-west. Let's look at north-south. So on a globe, we know how easy it would be to simply do a north-south circumnavigation going over both poles. Should be as easy as going east-west. So we either will have a ton of north-south circumnavigations, or we will have a few weird stories and trips and maybe some failed attempts, because on a flat earth map, north-south circumnavigation is impossible. So again, if we live on a globe, we should be seeing a lot of north-south navigations, circumnavigations, and if we live on a flat earth, we would see a lot of things like this picture shows. Imagine you start at that white dot there somewhere on the east coast of the United States and travel down to the tip of South America. You would then travel from there out to wherever the 90-degree marker was, and you'd have to turn around and come back. You see that line coming right back to the Mexico area, and then up to the North Pole, and then ending back where you started. All right, so should we expect to see no claims for north-south navigation? Well, remember, it is a deception, so we're going to have to dig a bit deeper. They don't just hand you the truth. They are happy to teach you lies in public schools and show you propaganda and TV and newspapers. But for truth, we're going to have to actually step out of our comfort zone. So let's look at some recent claims. First, we have the Guinness record holder and the Guinness Greatest Living Explorer, Sir Ranulph Fiennes. He goes by the name of Ran. One of the things he did was a 3-year trip to circumnavigate the Earth north-south. And are we dealing with some just regular guy? Or are we dealing with Sir Ranulph Twistleton Wexara Fiennes, the 3rd Baronet, OBE? He was in the British Army for 8 years. He inherited his father's baronetcy, whatever the hell that means. Some ridiculous nonsense, I'm sure. He's also cousins to Queen Elizabeth. So you don't have to look too far to see what kind of guy we are dealing with here. And a recent Telegraph article tells us that Sir Ranulph was in court recently because he was accused by Natalie Harrison of faking injuries to make his expedition seem more risky and exciting. And Natalie, she actually got hurt the second time she fell into a crevice on purpose. And you see him here with a ladder. I don't know who's carrying that for him while he's on these little journeys. But, oh, by the way, since Harrison agreed to go along with the 2 fake stunts, she got 0. In fact, she was ordered to pay Sir Ranulph Fakes-A-Lot $50,000 to pay for his lawyer fees, because the judge actually said that it was her choice to go ahead and agree with his idea of faking accidents. He is, of course, a Freemason, a member of the Belvedere Lodge number 503. Of course, it runs in the family. But now let's take a look at this 1979 to 1982 Trans-Globe Expedition, the North-South Pole Circumnavigation. Yeah, right.
No one has ever done that. No one has ever done that in the history of Dota.
So let's take a look if there's any discrepancies that might lead us to believe that maybe this is some, I don't know, horseshit. It looks like 52,000 miles, it says here, in total was covered during this Trans-Globe Expedition. Again, north-south navigation, 25,000 mile circumference, yet 52,000 mile trip. And we can note that it says it was such a huge challenge, no one has ever repeated the route. So now let's look at the Guinness Book of Fakery. According to this, we've got 35,000 miles. Okay, well, that's a little different. And this is the Guinness Book of World Records page. This is the Trans-Globe ship that actually he used to travel up and down the globe, I guess. They also had an interesting apparatus here. This is the Trans-Globe Expedition, the plane. So even though they're supposed to be doing surface navigation, who knows what they actually did. Let's see here. This is the actual homepage for Sir Ran, the expedition. Oh, now it's a 100,000 mile route.
You lie to me. You make an excuse.
So they've now jumped from 35 to 52 to 100,000 miles, all talking about the exact same trip.
Next, we're going to look at this Rockwell flight from 1965. This flight was claimed to have started in Honolulu, then flew to London, made a brief stop in Lisbon, then flew to Buenos Aires. From there, it flew over the South Pole and continued to New Zealand. Then from there, it flew back to Honolulu. Again, because this flight happened in 1965, we have no GPS data to give us the objective flight route and trajectory or legitimize the flight. So at best, it's just another trust me bro story. But let's go ahead and plot these locations and flight path out onto a flat Gleason's map and see how the route was actually done. You can see from its route over the South Pole that it had to land in New Zealand rather than Australia because it could not fly the additional non-stop 4,500 to 5,000 miles of its Antarctica South Pole and coastline turn and much out-of-the-way Sydney flight path. So rather instead, it had to take a much shorter flight route to land in New Zealand, as the landing in Australia would have been far too many miles. Now we're going to look at the more recent TAG transpolar flight from 2009. This flight had quite a few more stops than most other flights. It was claimed to have started in England, then flew over the North Pole, then making a brief stop in Canada, then landing on the island of Majuro. From there it flew to New Zealand, then it skimmed along a part of the Antarctica coastline and dipping over the South Pole, from which it then made a turn back up to Punta Arenas at the tip of South America, then flew to Cape Verde, Africa, and then finally returning back to England. Let's go ahead and take these locations and plot them on a Gleason's map, and you can once again see how simple this route was done. Starting in England, then flying over the North Pole, and then down to New Zealand, then flying the longest leg, briefly dipping over the South Pole, and then right back up to South America, then back to Africa, and returning into England. Another flight that very simply works on a flat AE map. And once again, another flight not making a complete north to south longitudinal circumnavigation of a globe. Next, we are going to look at the One More Orbit flight of 2019. This flight was actually debunked multiple times from several others, but we're going to debunk it again anyways. This flight started at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It then flew over the North Pole and landed in Kazakhstan. From there, it flew to Mauritius, then made a brief swoop over the South Pole, and then turned and went back up to Punta Arenas at the tip of South America. From there, it made its return flight back to Florida. We can put all these locations on a flat Gleason map, and you can see how very simple and basic of a flight route this actually was. It's basically just starting in Florida and making an elliptical flight route down to the South Pole and then back up to Florida. Again, this is just one half side of the globe and not a full north to south circumnavigation. And it is probably the most simple flight route of all four of these flights. Here's another more thorough debunk of the One More Orbit flight.
What's up, everyone? Let's do a quick little circumnavigation walkthrough. All right, so we had our debate partner, let's see, Pride guy, whatever the hell his name was, send out a tweet on his Twitter trying to flex and say that he had, the best debunk of flat Earth, and it was about circumnavigation north to south, and there was no way we could plot it on a pizza map or something. Actually, let's see what he said, because he put out this public challenge, right? Challenge all the flat earthers.
My name is Pride Guy, and today I'm going to be talking about circumnavigational flights. Polar circumnavigational flights, to be exact. This involves flying directly over both the North and South Poles, forming a complete loop around the North, around the Earth, which can only occur on a sphere. If you disagree, please tell me how these flights are consistent with a pizza world.
All right, cool. Next speaker.
Right, so that's about what I thought he said. So let's see, let's go through the responses. He says game over because he plotted it like that. That's not like an equal translation of it. And he says take any model of flat Earth and draw lines from the departure and it stops. Prove in flight the path that you win $1,000. Oh yeah, right. So this is, again, just make sure the route passes through, right? So he thinks that this is impossible on a flat Earth. If you understand map translations, then you'll know that any plot on this globe at any point in any place will equally translate to any projection. But let's go ahead and try it out, right? So let's see here. Of course, we have all the people trying to stir up emotional responses. Let's just shoot a response and see where we end up. It's alarming that we still have this issue when it's like, no, we can plot whatever's on that map on any map because that's how maps work, right? As long as they use the same longitude and latitude system as they're required to, and they all do because they're required to, then we can effortlessly and datalessly translate that to any map projection accordingly. So that's what I did. Let's go to our wonderful database, take a look. Well, we got that map, which we can turn right into that map, of course, but that one was weird because it's missing Australia. I just cut it off for it, so when I converted it, it was a little bit weird. So I tried to fix it by putting it over an overlay of a regular Mercator. That was effective, but not super effective, right? So that worked kinda. There's the route, but we found a better map that had the actual route, and that way I could convert it nicely with full detail into this wonderful map. And that still shows the route up there in yellow, but not quite legible, so we can fix that a little bit. And we'll go to this wonderful depiction where, of course, I had put both maps there. The first and starting product and finished result. And there we go. The path got a little bit more outlaid as I tried to actually trace it with marker. Here you go. So now I can see it. And here's the path on a whole bunch of different maps because I made a couple, right? There's the one on the globe showing you how it was supposed to be impossible, etc. Let's see here. This one of my favorites. That's a nice HD one. And of course, I think I ended up having it animated. I put the pictures of the pilots and I put their little date. And I visually animated them moving around this one orbit. Now they did many orbits, but this would be the fastest one maybe. And this is certainly the one that what's his face was trying to say is impossible. And I know that as soon as I show him that he's gonna do something else, change the thing, or give me a gotcha or whatever. But I just want everyone to see that maps aren't something we should be scared of. They are only tools. We need to understand the tools that we're going to use. All right. Oh, and I also kind of realized that it looked a lot like one of the pathways from the ISS when the ISS would when we have that video from the ISS giving us the pathways over Gleason's and a globe at the same time, and I thought, doesn't that look a lot like this? So I overlaid it up here and I made the map spin. So as we're coming around, it's gonna match up, and then I'm gonna see if this path actually would match one of their orbital paths of to set the record. So it's coming around right now, and my goal is to get this to match this green thing. I think right here is when it does. That's essentially the route, right? Here's a really good sort of compilation of the end result here. I got, the I forget what that, the Robinson projection over there, the circle one, the Mercator version, the translation of the base, the upscaled finite detailed last version, and then the actual animation of the path. So the top left one, this is pretty much the answer to his question that was supposed to dune flat Earth, right? Because of equal area and equal distance map translations, that path over Antarctica is just this big circle that goes all the way to about almost the edge, right? Again, it's past the 60th parallel, but it's above an elevation so high that it would just look the same. It would look a lot like the Antarctica. This. One of the coolest ones ever, huh? I think I'm gonna have to put this up after this video because people are gonna ask me about this one, huh? Yeah, I imagine it'd be like them flying right over Antarctica, right? So they'd be like over there, but they'd be talking about like this.
Go to the web version.
I mean, while we're at it,
right? And you click it, and what's that?
Oh wait, that's how you tell Antarctica is real. But so I'd imagine it would look quite like this, right? When they fly over Antarctica, maybe they just do a little bit of. Right, so let's just quickly go through the details here, so you can see the progression of how this interaction went when one had asked for, that circumnavigation trek on a pizza map, and then we went to, well, actually, no, you got to incorporate all the distance scales and a right visual representation to, well, no, actually, I wanted you to draw your own map, even though it took 300 years, and then to get the coordinates to refine it, but you should be doing that on the internet for 10 minutes for a meme or whatever. No. He says, since you admitted defeat but not being able to provide how this flight occurred on flat Earth, offer still stands. I'm so confident that he's challenging. Okay. And the answer over here with my animation, and he said, oh, lo and behold, defeated, I win. What is that distance? Of course, he definitely does not understand map projections. That is the same distance represented visually differently. Absolutely the same. Not to mention, the Gleason's map is an azimuthal equidistant, meaning those lines right here are longitude lines. This is the geodesic arc on the sphere straightened out and measuring the exact same distance all the way through from any point to the center. So an actual latitude scale out here would be the same. There is definitely ways to figure out longitude on this map, as Gleason's patent already has it sorted out. I'll go into that in just a minute. I'll just put them on display. We'll go through it real quick. But this map, not a globe projection, it is a similar projection of the 201 projections, of which the globe is one, that are permitted from the 201 projections of the celestial coordinate system. Essentially, all the maps that they have are using the same longitude and latitude that they are derived from geodesic surveying, astrogeodetics, and their wonderful GPS, which they quickly use to astrogeodetically map the world. Anyway, his main first contention was that this distance is wrong, so completely misunderstanding equal area, equal distance map translations, and that this map is in fact the same distance and area and data as the globe, of course flattened out. So total misunderstanding there. Didn't see that coming, right? And of course, my first answer was, oh, you don't know that the distance scales according to the patent? Because it absolutely does. Here's the way that it does: by using the time, your longitude time from local time, attaching that stick that came with it that looked like a ruler that would function as the perpendicular to the vertical from the azimuthal equidistant longitude. And then this would give you the opportunity to properly progress and map your longitude and or time. So between those two things, of course, you can get distances. They would be globular distances and or Google Earth distances, or the geodesic arcs from 2 points on a sphere, but distances nonetheless they would be. Anyway, yeah, here's the other. This is the back of the Gleason's map if you've ever bought one, and it tells you that this is, you know, based on a sun, and they get the longitude that way as well if you don't have access to the meridian. Literally a second way to get the corresponding time, right? So it says place one of the index arms on the meridian, the other on the the corresponding time. Now you have the difference between the two places in question. Next, with your finger on the own meridian, carry it to the time of day or night with your watch indicates, and then you'll be pointing to the time of day for the place desired. So you have to move that longitude and latitude to that time. Essentially, that's how you would compute all the distances. So moving right along. Of course, he said, well, and now the ice wall. He thinks that this went across the ice wall, right? But so we're laughing at the two distances, and so of course I was like, well, which equal representation of the same distance was funnier than the other one? And did he answer me? He says, when are you going to make a flat earth model from scratch? What's taking you guys so long? For real? No one likes the actual flat earth model that we put up? Sure, I took some publicly available source code and repurposed it to my will, but I mean, isn't that better than having no map? Don't they just scream no model, no model, no model? Never mind. That's a different video. My bad for getting distracted. You got me, right? Oh, we didn't have a map. I should have quit. That's like someone asked you about sunset halfway and like, what? Oh, dude, I've never considered nighttime. 2 years into it, and I was looking through like stars and gravity and like, you know, blood, dark matter and expecting, but dude, I forgot about nighttime. Good call. And so, as it turns out, all claims of circumnavigation that disprove flat Earth are inherently false, and public misunderstandings of things like map transformations, coordinate systems. I mean, it is to be expected that when things are claimed to debunk flat Earth, they not only do not debunk, but usually claim and support flat Earth. It absolutely does, right? Again, circumnavigation west to east has never been a problem. It's a circle. Everyone does it all the time. Everyone knows this. But north to south was claimed and misunderstood, never actually accomplished, right? What we need to see is it to pop directly over. You need to go all the way through and come around, right? If the Earth was flat, you have to imagine we want you to come back around from the other side of the world. That's what we'd have to see. Doing these little circles in and out, why would you think that would be impressive to us? It all just stems from people's misunderstandings of, I think, map projections. But essentially, if you have a circumnavigation route that a friend or is pressuring you about, that it needs to be translated, or anything needs to be translated to a different map set coordinate, just let me know and we'll translate them all back and forth, to and fro, all day long, or whoever needs it, right? Just to be shown that there is no difference, right? We can translate anything that we need to any other coordinate system if it's available in a G. So this is the software that I use, by the way, to do all that from NASA. It's wonderful. They don't allow you to use the globe because they want you to think that's where it's from, but you can just use Bacon's map online projector and he would handle it for him. So it's perfect. And then, so if you want me to translate a map, these are the projections that are allowed that I can use. So there's a couple hundred of them, but maybe I'll put them up somewhere. They are on my database, so you can just come take a look if you want. So because of this wonderful interaction, we now have a new database page called Circumnavigation North to South, where we do a bunch of animations and map conversions for different, you know, so-called planned circumnavigation routes. So here's one that I found on Google that was like, oh, that looks cool, but nope, here it is, right? Totally easy. Oh, this is probably one that we can definitely debunk. No, there it is, super easy. Well, that one looks probably super easy too, right? Yep, there it is. Well, that one, no, he just brought that one up to me. That can't possibly, no. Oh, wait, it's fucking right there. So eventually, like, we'll get the point that they're all the fucking same. They're absolutely the same. Doesn't matter, and it's not because they're all from the globe. It's because a globe, just like all the other projections, is one equal projection. The only difference is the actual coordinate set is also curved, as in the celestial sphere. So that's why geodesics work and linear lines do not. It's a wonderful deception.
Now let's talk about some other people who have also gone north-south circumnavigation and see if they match the flat model or the globe model. This is the owner of the current record for a single plane being flown north-south pole circumnavigation. You can look up ZQ Pilot. Let's take a look at his path. You'll see here the white path was the intended path. The red path is his actual path. So he went down to the tip of South America, bounced out to the 90-degree marker, and then turned around and went right back where he came from, then jumped from South America all the way to Australia, Australia to Hawaii, to California, to Alaska, to the North Pole, back home to North Carolina, and he has the record for circumnavigation. Did he circumnavigate? I don't think so, Tim. All right, now we're looking at a helicopter named Polar First as they attempted their record-setting helicopter flight pole-to-pole circumnavigation on December 5th, 2006, but they got down to the South Pole and crashed their helicopter. So in 2007, they attempted it again, and this time they did it according to the rules and regulations, not according to me, because what they did is went down to the South Pole, touched the 90-degree marker, and it says here they retraced their steps north with a stop at their 2003 crash site. They then crossed to the Drake and then to Ushuaia. Then they continued through South America. Then they went up the west coast of the U.S. with stops in Alaska and Canada, reaching the North Pole on 20th of April via Eureka. And from there, they headed south, retracing the northern part of the route, and then hitting the east coast, Montreal, then New York. So if you can't see what's going on here, we have basically no circumnavigations north-south. The ones that we do have are like liners, or I don't know if you remember in gym having to do suicides or whatever they were called. That's basically what they're doing. They're running to the pole, touching it, and coming right back. That is not circumnavigation. It makes no sense on a globe. Do we only fly planes to London and then they have to come right back? They're not allowed to go past that? Of course not, right? Hopefully you're starting to see the writing on the ball, which says, I'm fake. I'm a joke.
Every line is heading south. Now, if I try to head south on a flat Earth, I'm not going to end up over here. I'm just going to disappear. On a ball, you can go south and come back up. But guess what? Nobody has ever done it. Every time they try to do it, they end up going south, and then they turn around and they come back. Okay?
So you're saying
Now
no one has ever managed to travel south around, circumvent the Earth? Not even explorers?
Nobody has ever done it. The most recent one was a guy. It was called Spider Tracks, and we're like, this guy's going to do it. We could track him live. And he basically went from the North Pole, went out to Alaska, California, I believe Hawaii, these islands here, up over here, then down to South America. Then he went to the alleged South Pole. Then they said, oh, the weather's too bad. We have to turn around. And they came back up through Brazil, and they came up here and back up to the North Pole. And we're like, well, they didn't do it. Guinness Book gave them the world record for southern circumnavigation. Okay. All they did on a flat Earth is they went here, and they turned around and came back. Right? They went here, turned around and came back. That's all they did. Okay. And they just had another one recently that happened.
Even on a globe Earth, they didn't circumvent south.
They didn't circumnavigate, right? They had another one that they had another one. I think it went from like South Africa. It went down, and now if we're looking at this on a globe, it went down and it just went like this, went over here, and then it went back up. Right? They didn't cut across that way. Right? And so on a flat Earth, right? They went from South America, they just skirted over here, and then they came over here. That's it. That's all they did. Right? Nobody goes from Santiago and pops up in New Zealand or Australia. No one's ever done it. No one's ever done it.
Well,
okay.
Another flight that claims to do that is Qantas. Qantas has a flight. Now, there's only a handful of these flights that even make the claim, right? But even looking here at this site, if you were to Google this flight, this Qantas flight, Qantas DR14, it clearly didn't go over the mass of Antarctica. So one of the things, hopefully, when you're researching this, is you'll understand that our government does it too, and it's still accurate. You can represent a 3D spherical Earth in a one-dimensional flat map, right? So, and it's still accurate, right? For this flight to truly have traversed, to have gone under the ball and back up the other side, it would have to go over the center. Because when you take this and you represent it in a flat map, it just skipped along the coastline, right? So let's look here, and I'll tell you I'll explain this. So I think every flight, I could be wrong about that, maybe not military flights, but just about every flight that happens in the world is recorded. And you can go look up their coordinates from a flight track log. And this particular website is FlightAware, and you can look up QF14, which happened on the 5th of October 2021, and it went from Buenos Aires to Darwin, Australia. And they've shared the coordinates here. You can see that they didn't go over Antarctica. They clearly didn't go over the mass of it. They went a very long path here. They skimmed along the coast. If they did want to prove, if this were a true navigation over Antarctica, what you would do is you would fly due south, and you would come out right here. And this is accurate. This one-dimensional representation of the globe, if you were to spherize it, right here would be connected to right over here. This would all wrap back around. So this would be a much shorter flight, right? To just go straight due south and come out the other side. But they didn't do that. So to claim this as proves the sphere Earth, that's a great misrepresentation, right?
Next, I kind of wanted to look into this other north to south circumnavigation flight by a Dick Smith that I had heard about from some others, and this apparently happened back in the late 80s. I want to say 1987, 1988. So I figured I'd look into it for a minute. And once I looked into it, I did start finding a lot of discrepancies with the time frames, the mileage. I mean, in excess of tens of thousands of miles, way too many days spent in Antarctica navigating, and the math was not adding up. But we'll look here for a second at kind of the general route he took, and there's a lot of focus on his trip to Antarctica. He first started off in Hobart, Australia, and from Hobart he went down to Casey Station. From Casey, if I remember right, he navigated over to Murney and Mawson Station and did a little exploration on some of the glaciers over here, and then he backtracked to Casey, and then from there he went over to McMurdo Station, and then Cape Evans, and then from Cape Evans he navigated down to the South Pole, and then he backtracked to Cape Evans, and then from there went to Casey Station again. And this is where it gets a little weird, but he allegedly makes a second trip back to the South Pole, which to me seemed kind of odd, like why he would make two trips to the South Pole, and even the story written in here seems really odd. And I think, there's a reason why there's a second trip to the South Pole. I think this was added into the narrative, and I'll get into that later. So no objective evidence that shows he's going to the South Pole twice, but there's a lot of little things like that that just don't add up, a lot of missing information. But the first thing that kind of caught my attention was the flight from Hobart to Casey Station, which I want to say that's like 22 to 2,400 miles. And I know these Twin Otter planes that he was using, this specific one has a range of, I believe, 990 miles. So I thought, how are they even flying that far with one of these planes? And then I did some more reading, and I discovered that they actually added 6 auxiliary tanks to the cabin of the plane, which contained 150 U.S. gallons each, which added a total of 900 gallons to give them the extra fuel they needed to cover the range of those longer flights. So from there, I kind of did a little bit of math to figure out what the updated range on this plane was. So it's normally 990 miles, and according to the technical specs, it's 2,583 pounds of fuel to get that range. So if we do that for the 990 mile range, we divide that by 2,583 pounds, we get 0.38 miles per gallon. And then with the added 900 gallons from the auxiliary tanks, we get 1 gallon of plane fuel equals 6 pounds plus 900 gallons added times 6 pounds is 5,400 pounds. So the 2,583 pounds plus 5,400 pounds equals 7,983 pounds of fuel, which comes out to about a 3,033 mile range. And with the top speed on these Twin Otter planes, they fly about, I want to say it was 170 knots, which is about 195 miles per hour. So we'll just say around 200 miles per hour. So with that, with the range, let's say he's flying for 10 hours a day, that's 2,000 miles a day on average. And there's a lot of these legs on here where he is flying, for example, from Casey to Vostok to the South Pole is taking him about 5 days to get there. And that's at least 10,000 miles. Well, the official narrative is that's not even close to that. He's traveling tens of thousands of miles further than he should be. And there's a lot of parts on here where he is basically navigating certain geographical features, and he's claiming that he's spending 3,000 to 4,000 miles of navigating these features, but yet he's not showing any pictures of a lot of the areas that he's claiming. And there's several parts here where he's got these couple days of just navigating off course and then not really giving much documentation on it. And I think this is where the extra mileage comes in, with the going off course and exploring, and the second trip, alleged trip to the South Pole. I believe it's covering all the different extra time frames and the extra mileage that he shouldn't be navigating. So there was, we can look when he first started to go to the Casey station. He got there on November 5th. And then by the time he left Antarctica, he basically flew down to the South Pole, and then he flew to, I believe it was called Patriot Island. And then from Patriot Island, he went to King George Island. Here we go. So King George Island. And that was Saturday, December 3rd. So he was in Antarctica making these South Pole flights from Casey Station for 28 days. So he was literally flying something that should only take a matter of 1 to 2 days. I mean, granted, he was doing some exploring beyond some of these stations, but even reading, because I read through this whole book, most of these stations that he stops at, when he's in Vostok Station, he's in Murney Station, and Mawson Station, he's only staying there for a day. And so when we look at all the stops, we're maybe taking off, 7 or 8 days. So we're still left with another 20 to 21 days of just flying. So we're talking 3 weeks of just flying. And this is something that should be able to be flown over in a matter of, even with the extra exploration, 3 to 5 days. So something's just not adding up here. And we can even look, there is I kind of plotted, this is just a really rough sketch here, but I did a Gleason's with the actual latitude and longitudes of the Antarctic base stations, plotted out, and kind of took the general path that he flew. Started out in Australia to the Casey Station, flew over to Murney and Mossy stations, and then backtracked, flew over to McMurdo, the South Pole, and then back up through South America, back to North Pole, and back through Russia, and I think he went through Beijing, China, and then back through to Australia. So, but over a third, actually, it was almost a half of this whole expedition was just spent in Antarctica, when on a globe, the majority of this mileage, Antarctica is just a small little ice continent at the bottom of a globe. So, I mean, you should be spending only a fraction of this whole expedition in Antarctica. And the very large majority of this expedition was spent flying and navigating over Antarctica. And a very small part of it was just flown over the actual other continents, which I thought was kind of strange, because it should actually be the opposite of that if they were navigating on a globe. Again, none of it was really adding up. And the thing too with this is that this is, this is all rendered drawings and, kind of estimations of what he flew on a map, a drawing of a map. So there's no, I understand there was no flight radar 24, there's no GPS tracking back then. So there's no way to actually track the mileage or the actual flights, trajectories that he was flying. But, we don't have any objective evidence of what he actually flew, but, it's kind of hard to really, believe the actual routes he's flying when the mileage and the time frames just aren't adding up. I mean, he's spending a month, just flying in Antarctica. And, look at the appendix here. And, he's got from, like I said, the beginning of November, November 5th, all the way down to December 3rd. And where all these other legs are, way less than what he spent in Antarctica. So the math just doesn't make sense. Why is he spending so much time in Antarctica and barely any other time over what should be a substantial amount of more mileage over Russia and China and South America and North America? So just wasn't really adding up. It seems kind of like another trust me bro story. As much as pictures and photos there is of this expedition, there's a lot of photos that are missing. There's a lot of sections that are missing. There's a lot of time that's missing. A lot of documentation that's missing. So the other big thing too is with a lot of these stops that he's making and refueling. Apparently, he was refueling, I believe, every 9 hours, which I think is the standard range on these planes. If he's refueling every 9 hours, I believe each time he refuels, it lasts for, I want to say it was 45 minutes to an hour. So how many times is he refueling throughout the day? How many times, how many stops is he making throughout the day? Is he filling the tanks up all the way or half the way? Is he filling up at the stations? There's just so much information missing. We don't know what to make of this entire month that he's in Antarctica. So it's, he could be saying he's going here, but he's actually going there. And is he making a refueling stop over here? So, and when it comes down to it, if it was really just flying over the South Pole, he shouldn't be spending 28 days down there. That just doesn't make any logical sense. So that was kind of my 2 cents on this Dick Smith circumnavigation. Somebody told me to look into it, so I figured I'd give it a minute of my time and just kind of spend some more time looking at it. So I don't think it is what we're told it is, just simply because the time and the mileage just is not adding up. But that's just my opinion. So I also think that with all of the modern advancements in technology and GPS tracking, that at least one person would have done a similar expedition as this one. If this was so easily accomplished over 30 years ago, then why has not a single person flown over the South Pole from the opposite Australian side of Antarctica ever since? And the handful of recent explorers that have attempted to circumnavigate north to south over the last decade, that we objectively already knew that these flights were debunked just by simply observing their flight coordinates. If this guy from over 30 years ago could allegedly accomplish this, then there should be hundreds of people since then that have already done this by now. But there has only been 7 or 8 attempts over the course of nearly 50 years, and yet all of them were debunked and failed to circumnavigate over the globe. And then you have this one expedition in question from over 30 years ago that had spent over 4 weeks to fly over the South Pole and Antarctica with tens of thousands of extra miles, tons of missing information, and no log chart for all of their many refueling stops. I think that in itself is pretty telling in regards to the legitimacy of this alleged expedition. Seems a bit similar to the Sir Ranulph Fiennes and the Transglobe expedition. And we already know how much of a lie both of those were. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
One of the alleged north to south pole to pole flight circumnavigations that comes up a lot, that many claim circumnavigated the globe, is the Pan Am Flight 50 pole to pole flight in 1977. But when you actually look at its path and read up the documentation on it, it becomes very obvious how it was actually done, and the path it really took on a flat azimuthal equidistant map. It is claimed this flight route starts in San Francisco, then flies over the North Pole, then lands in London, then lands in Cape Town, Africa, then flies over the South Pole landing in Auckland, then back to San Francisco. And I had also read and heard from a few others that the passengers also saw Mount Erebus while flying over Antarctica. Whether or not this part is objectively true is not entirely for certain, as there are no photos or videos from the passengers corroborating this, which we will get more into later. But for now, we will just go along with the narrative and give them the benefit of the doubt. This only makes a stronger case for the actual flight route that they would have had to have taken. The biggest trick, and the key to figuring out how they pulled off this flight, is the South Pole. For one, I believe they didn't actually fly over the South Pole, which is what gets most people on this, as there are no photos that were ever taken of the South Pole from any of the passengers. Not one single photo of the South Pole Station from one of the 78 passengers. As well as no video footage of this magnificent sight, there's actually surprisingly very little information and documentation of this flight available online, which seems pretty suspicious for as historical of an event as this allegedly was. And it only gets worse. The actual video footage of them flying over the quote-unquote South Pole looks nothing like the actual South Pole. It's showing a very much mountainous terrain with no Amundsen Scott station in sight. Now the pilots could have easily explained this away, simply by saying there was a blizzard making the visibility hard to see the South Pole, or they just flew over the station a few miles back so you just missed it, and so on. But you can obviously see from the video shown of Antarctica, there is large mountain ranges all over and different terrain, whereas the Amundsen Scott base station is completely flat without a mountain in sight for hundreds of miles. Let's take a listen here on compare their view at the alleged South Pole and compare it to the aerial photography of the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station.
The clouds break up just in time to give passengers a good view of snow-covered Antarctica. You're looking at the very bottom of the world. Its stark, almost mysterious beauty is an unforgettable sight. The first person to cross Antarctica to the South Pole was Roald Amundsen in 1911. His trek took him 17 months. For Clipper New Horizons, it's been a swift 7-hour, 10-minute flight from Cape Town.
5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, you're at the South Pole. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Mulligan now, and a toast to all of you for the big moment we've been waiting for.
Wait a second. How is it that the South Pole shown from the plane's window view show mountains for many miles and looks nothing like the actual South Pole photo on the right? This view shown of Antarctica from the Pan Am flight objectively couldn't be the South Pole. This is because it isn't the South Pole. It's an entirely different part of Antarctica, and we're just told it was the South Pole. Now they did actually fly over Antarctica, part of it anyways. However, they didn't fly in the east to west direction from Cape Town over the South Pole to Auckland that is shown on the rendered route drawing. They actually flew the opposite direction, flying west to east, and skimming over the Antarctica coastline on the flight leg to Auckland, which explains why, after 7 hours, they claimed the clouds cleared below them and they could see Antarctica for the first time and seen Mount Erebus shortly before landing in Auckland, and it is the timing part that is the obvious giveaway of this flight. For over half of this leg of the flight, they couldn't see Antarctica. Now, if they are actually flying the east to west route shown on the rendered drawing map, and we look at the max speed of the Boeing 747 SP plane on this Pan Am flight, with a max speed of 620 miles per hour, not including jet streams, so we'll just figure a cruising speed of 532 miles per hour, which is what was claimed in the official Pan Am Flight 50 video, even though it was very likely going faster than this 532 miles per hour speed, but we will just go along with the official narrative for now. The distance from Cape Town to the coast of Antarctica is only about 2,500 miles, and Cape Town to the South Pole is about 3,800 miles. At this flight, speed of 532 miles per hour, it would have only taken about 4.5 hours to reach the Antarctica coastline, potentially even much sooner taking into account the wind speeds of the jet streams, and about 7.5 hours to reach the South Pole. But the passengers claimed to have not seen Antarctica for the first 7 hours of the flight, and only seen the South Pole after the clouds cleared, after over 7 hours of flying on the back half of the flight to Auckland. This objectively proves they didn't fly the east to west route over the South Pole, but actually flew west to east to Auckland. And the 14.5-hour claimed flight time for this leg also adds up with the flight speed and polar jet streams going in that direction and the extra hour to go off course and skim the Antarctica coastline and fly by Mount Erebus before turning back to land in Auckland. This overall added flight time also corroborates the with the flight speeds from the southern jet streams moving in the east flight direction from what has been tracked by a model builder from live GPS ping tracking software. This GPS data has been intentionally hidden and misreported by Flight Radar 24 GPS tracking sites. This, along with the GPS meridian distance corrections built into the GPS coordinate system and ECI reference frame, allows them to cook the books on GPS flight data to continue to hide the true longer distances navigated below the equator. You won't find these true jet stream wind speeds and the true GPS flight data from what instantly pops up on a quick censored Google search, and this is by design.
Data than GPS dot and speed and altitude and azimuth to be shot. So here is it. This is one of the screenshots I have made. I have 3 screenshots for now, where I have seen this type of flight on my software, and I was comparing like the kilometers given by flight radar and the actual speed. You know, here we can see 1,000 kilometers is the speed given by flight radar 24, and 1,220 kilometers is the computed speed I have done by the GPS dot. Okay, there is the same problem with this one. And as we can see, the other thing that is odd is only 787 minus 9 Dreamliner do this flight. Every fucking plane is this type of plane, and there is only only 6. I got only 4, but tac. As we can see, there is this one, the QFA 27, the LEN 800 that we retrieved here, and
so basically, like, you're showing that the recorded pings from the GPS are showing that the plane's going a lot faster than they report that it goes.
Yeah, exactly. We can see the differential speed between flight radar 24 and the computed here.
Wow. Right.
Again.
No shit. What the fuck?
Again here. And again here. And as we see,
oh my god, bro! Whoa!
It's
sorry. These are southern flight paths.
Listen, because it's pretty interesting here. It's the same day. Okay, it's the same day, and this one was going. Let me get straight. West to east, and this one was going east to west. Look at the differential speed. Like maybe a jet stream? I don't know.
Yeah. Let me hold on. Let me show you this real quick and see where that lines up. Where's that at?
Let me 2 seconds. Yeah.
How many hectopascals is 40,000 feet?
Sorry?
Well, 1519 kilometers per hour. Is that what it was? Or was it 1319? It's like 940 miles per hour, which is insane.
There is some we can distinguish some diamond pattern at some.
Dude, you know what it seems like? It seems like they're flying to the buoy, like they'll like diverge to it, and then they'll go to the next one and to the next one. It's like they're on a literal autopilot system to just hit these checkpoints.
Look at that here.
Look at that shit. This is nuts, dude. Yeah. They're like, no, you have to intersect right here, guy.
It's like it's like a crossing mechanism, like a train, you know.
Yeah, it's like they have to follow these routes, but then you get these weird ones where they're like, nah, we can go wherever we want, but then they still end up at another node, like regardless of like whatever corrections are going on, they still end up like dude,
it can be, yeah.
Like, why would it do that? But, why would it like? Dude, these are crazy, bro.
And I can show you the other on this era.
Hey,
it will be overwhelming too. So I will show you.
Can you zoom in on some of the land stuff real quick? Because it looks like over water, what they're doing is like extending the flight times a little bit by like just going in a different direction for a little bit and then intersecting the node instead of taking the optimal path. It's almost like they're extending flight times or delaying them, like artificially.
Yeah, maybe like going straight over land masses because I mean straight they follow azimuth or something.
Yeah, because you can't hide it. You can't hide it over the land masses. They have to follow it on that.
Yeah, because you can see it.
Yep.
People will be like, why we are doing that?
Exactly. It has to match the globe at least loosely enough to so that nobody raises an eyebrow. But yeah, when they get over the water, look at that, dog. They go ham. They're like we got that green light, boys. No one's out here. Let's do it. And then it's just whatever they want to do. You could see it right there. They don't fuck around on land. And then when it gets to the ocean,
I will just show you the other.
You can be surprised at how fast these winds can be at any time of the day in the upper layers of the atmosphere. So let's take a look at this document, Meteorology, Atmospheric Jet Streams in the Aerospace Age by Herbert Real, Department of Atmospheric Science, Colorado State University, Fort Collins, Colorado. Now this is paper number 34. I wonder how many more there are, and I just don't have access to those papers. You see the date on this paper, copyright 1962. Alright, so this is by the time soon after Operation Fishbowl and Dominique, when they figured out the firmament and they were studying all the jet streams. So let's look at this one here, aerodynamics and fluid mechanics, aeroelasticity, biomedical sciences, communication, control and guidance, energy conversion, flight mechanics, instrumentation, management, meteorology, nuclear applications, operations, propulsion systems, reliability, space physics, structures and materials support, vehicle design. So aerospace technology as seen by the panel's atmospheric science laboratory collection. So we have all this stuff here, meteorology, atmospheric jet streams in the aerospace age. So let's just look at the jet streams as defined here. So number one, the middle latitude jet streams, latitude 35 to 60, core, speed occasionally above 200 knots, mean height 35,000 feet, mean middle latitude 35 to 60. So the subtropical jet stream of winter, latitude 25 to 35, core, speeds occasionally approaching 300 knots. Now guys, this is about 480 kilometers per hour, or almost 400 miles per hour. Plus, that means adding to the speed of the airplane. So if we look at this picture, this is what they're talking about. It's this is the equator. The subtropical goes here and here. We have four winds. We have one here, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, just like the Bible says. And this article talks about the four winds. We'll take a look. But this is what they're talking about. These jet streams reach 300 knots 555 kilometers per hour, 345 miles per hour. Just imagine the flights coming from Sydney to Santiago when they get on these jet streams here. Let's say for 4 hours or 5, adding 345 miles per hour on an aircraft that's probably already flying around 600 miles per hour. So you easily have 1,000 miles per hour here, easily. Fast here, but it's still a lot of 300 miles per hour. It's a lot. Let's go back here to the article. And the polar night jet stream, roughly around the poles from west at latitude 6 to 65 in winter, core height at least 75,000 feet, velocity recorded above 200 knots, strong winders and asymmetries, and position common. Now, besides this four wind system, this is really interesting because the Bible talks about the four winds. Okay, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, the Bible was already mentioned the four winds. And then here we have University of Colorado confirming about these four winds. Same article, different page. In view of the rapid fuel consumption of jets, however, wind has proved to remain a significant factor. Substantial time can be saved in flight planning for the common aviation system with inclusion of the upper winds in flight planning. So they include these upper winds when planning their flights from Sydney to Santiago. Especially during upstream flights for subsonic jets, this savings often amount to 10% or more of Great Circle Route flight time. For instance, with
GPS synchronization has been verified in numerous experiments. It is identical to the calculations presented in this paper and also to the Sagnac effect, which is included in the GPS. Among the list of the corrections, there is a correction involving a parameter taking into account how many Earth meridians are crossed by the path of light or by a moving clock move between the what?
Wait, what?
What?
Are
Yo. Yo.
clock.
Whoa. Whoa. Red flag.
Meridian again?
Red flag. So the latitude line. So every time it crosses the lines, like
It says
right
there's
here.
a correction involving a parameter taking into account how many Earth's meridians.
So anytime it crosses one of these lines, Toby.
There's another account for it, right? Another parameter that they add into it.
Dude.
Go
Dude, Toby, we're never gonna be able to get the distance using GPS, dog.
No, of course not, dude.
No,
Of
look
course
at this.
not.
Literally to the fucking meridian, bro.
Among the GPS list of corrections, there is a correction involving a parameter there is a correction involving a parameter taking into account how many Earth meridians are crossed by light. Dude, wait, so GPS signals are based on by numerous experiments and identical to the calculations. Where can we pull that? I would like to pull that other one up at some point. Maybe I can pull it up on my own.
The clock
I wanna see
synchronization
this.
thing.
I want to see that, but we're never going to see that. They're not going to
The
show
clock
that.
synchronization. Oh my god, dude! No, we have to go look right now. Because if that's in there, what was that document called? I highlighted it in green.
You got it marked it green, yeah.
It's
Go up, I think. Oh wait, no.
Down here.
I think it was towards the top. I thought.
There it is.
No, that's
not that one. That's close though.
There it is.
This one right here. Yep.
Yep.
We're gonna go pull this up.
Like if we can find that, that will be pretty cool.
Dude, correcting to the meridian, bro. Get the F out of here. You could never, ever say anything about, oh, we use reciprocal GPS angles. Sorry, buddy.
Now that we know that the view of alleged South Pole from the plane window does not match the aerial photography of Amundsen Scott's South Pole Station, the claimed flight time to Antarctica does not match with the east to west claimed route from the rendered map route, and the jet stream wind speeds, and west to east direction matching up with the west to east route they would have had to have taken, are all solid conclusive evidence that debunks this Pan Am 50 flight and further proves yet another flight not being a complete true north to south circumnavigation.
Terry, do you have a video on exposing the lie of north-south circumnavigation? A friend of mine, Glover, brought up an article from Guinness Book of World Records stating that this was done in 1982. I thought I saw something in the past. Okay, Watchman. Now, first of all, that friend of yours probably Googled that answer that he gave you. And a lot of people don't realize this, but around 2017, 18 is when they started doing censorship. So when you go to look up something on Google, it's not going to give you the correct answer. And here's my proof to that. Let's answer your question in 2016. And what I mean by that is I save a lot of things. So luckily in 2016, when I asked Google that question myself, let me show you the answer that it gave me in 2016. Let's look back in my vault here. Here we go. Can we circumnavigate over Antarctica? Since the North Pole and Antarctica are covered in ice and guarded no-fly zones, no ships or planes have ever been known to circumnavigate the Earth north-south directions. March 9th, 2016. That was the Google answer. Now here we are 7 years later. Let's ask Google the same question and see what the answer is that it gives us in 2024. Okay, Google, can we circumnavigate over Antarctica? The same way we asked in 2016. Okay, notice this time this little flat Earth thing pops up here. And then it says polar circumnavigation. Polar circumnavigation is complete navigation around the Earth through both the North Pole and the South Pole. Several parties have successfully done it. Anyways, it says, has anyone circumnavigated the Earth north to south? The first pole-to-pole circumnavigation flight took place in 1965 by modified Flying Tiger Line Boeing 707, carrying 40 scientists, guests, and crew. Okay, now this supposed to took place in 1965, okay, but this didn't show up in 2016 when we searched this on Google, but if you look right down here, this wasn't entered into Google until July the 6th of 2018, after they started Flat Earth censorship. So let's look up another one real quick. Okay, why is it illegal to fly over Antarctica? Planes can and do sometimes fly over Antarctica. It is not a no-fly zone and it is not illegal. It is just very impractical to do so. So there you go. Once again, the puppet masters at Google have changed the answer to it is not a no-fly zone and it is not illegal. Well, what did you tell us in 2016, Google? Since the North Pole and Antarctica are covered in ice and guarded no-fly zones, no ships or planes have ever been known to circumnavigate the Earth north-south directions. So there you see it. If you're looking for any kind of answers about flat Earth or any kind of technical questions like north and south circumnavigation, you are definitely not going to find it on Google. That's been censored a long time ago. Now they will show you a couple of ghost flights like this one here going from Australia to South America. But you easily convert that over to the flat Earth map, and you can see they're just flying over Alaska and Greenland. When people look at that plane, they think they see in Antarctica. You see in Alaska and Greenland. That's the snow and ice you see in people. So, anyways, there's your answer. Everyone, thanks for watching. Have a good afternoon, and God bless.
And by definition, this must be the case, because to continue traveling southwards beyond this southernmost point is tantamount to traveling northwards. If the Earth is not a globe, however, and is actually an extended level plane, as claimed by flat earthers, continuing to travel south of the South Pole would not and could not bring bring the traveler back north. On a flat Earth, the traveler would instead continue southwards into unknown southern territories that don't exist on a globe. If NASA, the world's governments, militaries, media, academia, and or anyone else involved in maintaining the legitimacy of the globe concept truly wanted to shut up flat earthers once and for all, this is how easy it would be. Allow for independent travel south of the South Pole, or live stream a full south to north circumnavigation of the supposed globe, starting in Antarctica and traveling south. Show the world's flat earthers that traveling south of the South Pole will somehow bring you north. At the very least, show us what happens when a plane travels perfectly straight in any direction, starting from anywhere on Earth, for 48 hours. If Earth is truly a ball 24,900 miles in circumference, as we are taught, traveling perfectly straight in any direction, starting from anywhere on Earth, at an average flight speed of 550 miles per hour, the globe model claims the plane will circumnavigate the entire circumference and return to its original starting point. On a flat Earth, however, a plane traveling in a perfectly straight line, never deviating left or right, regardless of where it starts or which direction it travels, will eventually reach the Antarctic. Why has such a simple experiment never been performed in aviation history? Are we globe earthers and flat earthers alike content and complacent enough with what we are told to simply trust it as truth? Children are taught in school that explorers like Magellan and others have traveled in perfectly straight lines eastwards or westwards, and eventually arrived back at their starting point. It's universally heralded as proof of the globe, and most adults today still believe such circumnavigations have actually occurred. The truth of the matter is, however, that all successful circumnavigations in history, whether by sea or air, have followed the same pattern, which is sailing or flying the most convenient route from port to port, stopping for supplies and refueling until a complete circle has been made. Not a single sailor or aviator in history has or could travel only in the same one perfectly straight direction and magically arrive back where they began. This ridiculous lie becomes obvious when critically examined, but when taught to young children, successfully bends and warps their minds into accepting globe indoctrination. Unlike the cardinal directions on a compass rose, north, south, east, and west on Earth are not simply straight lines separated by 90 degrees. North, rather than being an upward shooting arrow, is actually a point, a center point, the center point of the entire Earth, known as the geographic North Pole, situated directly below Polaris, the North Pole star, the only motionless star in the heavens, which marks the exact center point of the sky. South, rather than being a downward shooting arrow, is actually every line tangent to the northern center point, or in other words, every straight line extending outwards from the North Pole heads due south. East and west, rather than being right and left facing arrows, are actually clockwise and counterclockwise circles around the pole. The sun, moon, and stars all rise in the east and set in the west, making perfect circles over and around us every day. As you can observe, they travel in a circular westward path over and around the Earth, and do not all travel in a straight leftward direction as suggested by a compass rose. Likewise, navigators since ancient times have used Polaris to guide their ships, knowing that Polaris was the heavenly North Pole. South was traveling keeping your back to Polaris. East meant traveling always keeping your left shoulder 90 degrees to Polaris, and west meant traveling always keeping your right shoulder 90 degrees to Polaris. So, put up, or shut up, globe apologists. If we are truly free, show us what happens when you go straight in a plane for 24 or 48 hours. If Earth is truly a globe, show us what happens when you travel south of the South Pole. We have never been shown or allowed to perform such a simple experiment. If NASA, the world's governments, militaries, media, academia, and or anyone else involved in upholding the globe truly wanted to prove their model and shut up every single flat earther once and for all, this is how easy it would be.
After taking a deeper look into all of the actual flight routes of these alleged north to south flight circumnavigations, it becomes very clear that none of these claimed flights are actually completely circumnavigating north to south over a globe. It is important to note that for an expedition to be considered a north to south circumnavigation by a ruling body, such as the Guinness World Records, it is valid enough to reach the poles, make a U-turn, and head back the way you came, and the loop does not need to be spread out like the equator or the first and last meridian loop. All that is required by a ruling body is for it to be a one-way route with loops at the poles, which is very misleading, dishonest, and quite suspicious to say the least. But now that we know that all these alleged circumnavigation flights are arbitrarily defined and decided by a ruling body, we can use our own rational reasoning to look at these with common sense and realize that none of these flights actually fly a complete north to south circumnavigation over a globe. They should be the equivalent opposite navigation of the same east to west circumnavigations that happen every day. Even the logic of a young child can comprehend that a half loop elliptical route on one half side of a ball is not a circle going entirely around a ball. It's quite a simple concept to understand, yet many still like to play dumb and ignore reality, rather than addressing the objective facts. You are only persuaded to believe these are complete north to south circumnavigations because of the disinformation peddled by global propaganda. It's rather interesting that most of these alleged circumnavigation flights never even existed prior to 2015. And then as soon as flat Earth became more of a controversy in the mainstream, all of these fake circumnavigation flights started popping up every year. And Google had to change its answer on the flight regulations flying over Antarctica and whether any planes or ships have ever navigated north to south over the world. But I'm sure that's all just a big coincidence.